What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'll be answering some of your questions. We'll be talking about the next LEGO Star Wars gunship, the possible return of a Palpatine's Arrest, as well as a Phase 2 Commander Wolffe, and some other 2025 and 2026 LEGO Star Wars set leaks. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next installment of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. But without further ado, let's get right on into this video. Our first question for today comes from Clips Films Melbourne, and they ask, do I think that LEGO should do a 104th gunship in the Mercy Mission episode? Now, I do actually think that this would be a great idea, and I definitely do think that LEGO should make this. However, more realistically, I doubt that this is a set that we would see in the future from LEGO Star Wars, maybe far down the line, but if I had to bet money on it, with the Coruscant Guard gunship retiring at the end of this year, I would believe that the next gunship that we see is going to just be our normal Republic gunship, and I think most people would probably just want the normal variant of the gunship. Now, I am all for getting the different variants. I honestly think the Coruscant Guard gunship, while may have been not executed in the best way, was still a very fun and creative set, and I would love to see like a 104th and some of the other ones, maybe a Munilist 10 or something like that, and I do think that it is something that would be a possibility in the future. However, I don't think it would happen like anytime within the next 5 years. I feel like it would be pretty far down the line for LEGO Star Wars, but I do think that would have been a great set. You'd get, like you said, a Phase 1 pilot, your Phase 2 Wolffe, some Wolfpack troopers, maybe some droids, and that new Plo Koon would be so cool, but realistically, I think that we would get a normal Republic gunship before we see a 104th gunship. German Main asks, do I think that in the future we will see a Commander Doom as well as his Legion in a battle pack or a set? And thank you for your kind words, and I do think that this is a great idea. I think the overall design for Commander Doom as well as his Legion is so sick, and I do think, you know, with the last season of the Clone Wars that did come out, they definitely had some pretty prevalent like scenes in there, especially was it the Battle of Scipio, I believe, or wherever Tup's like ship mount functioned. I guess that's a spoiler, but if you haven't watched the Clone Wars at this point, I don't know what you're doing. But I feel like if we got a set like that would have been so sick to see. I did see a custom set, I believe it was from brickwizardcustoms on Instagram, had like one of like those hallway themed sets, and it had Commander Doom as well as the Doom Squadron, and I think that would be a sick way to get them. And well, I do think it's something that is possible in the future, as they were a Legion that was kind of prevalent in the Clone Wars, and with how niche LEGO has been getting recently with some of these different clone legions, I do think it's a possibility to see them. However, I do think it's a bit less likely than seeing some other legions. Zaytrap asks, do I think that we'll get any Jedi Survivor or Fallen Order sets, or Force Unleashed Anniversary sets, or just an overall topic of game-themed LEGO Star Wars sets? And, well, I do think that some of these sets that we have gotten for LEGO Star Wars that were based off of a video game have been some of the greatest sets that we've ever gotten. Like the Force Unleashed had that original Rogue Shadow back in 2007. That's probably my biggest Grail set right now. You had the Old Republic, which had an insane run of LEGO sets. Then you got some newer ones for like the Battlefronts 2, as well as the Jedi Fallen Order sets, which was only the BD1 as well as the Anniversary Cal Kestis minifigure, which brings me to my biggest point, which is, unfortunately, I don't think that we would get any more sets based off of Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, just because we got Cal Kestis as an Anniversary minifigure leads pretty much everyone to believe that LEGO is not planning to put him in a set in the future, and if we did get any sets based off of those games, Cal Kestis would be probably the front runner of a minifigure to get, whether that be like a Mantis, a playset, even if it was some sort of like battle pack or something like that. I don't even know, but LEGO kind of, you know, showed us that we're not going to be getting a new Cal Kestis in any set or in any set in general, and that kind of ties into the fact that we got that Darth Malak as well as something that LEGO views wouldn't necessarily come out in another set, that being another character from a video game. And maybe with the remake of the Old Republic coming out at some point in the future, we could see something come back, but I think that LEGO just doesn't really focus on the video games as much. Now, there's definitely a couple of reasons that could be for. Now, the main one is being the video games are obviously a bit more niche for LEGO Star Wars. The second is, or LEGO's biggest argument is that they are too violent. They're, you know, more geared toward an adult audience, but I would agree some of the biggest spenders when it comes to LEGO is definitely the adult audience and not the younger audience. So, and especially if they have these 18 plus sets, I think that it is such a waste that they are not making more sets based off of these games or other mature like parts of Star Wars that you could have gotten some really cool sets on. But it is kind of sad to see that. And then another reason is probably has to do with Disney's licensing. I feel like they have a pretty big control of what LEGO is able to make into a set or whatnot. So I feel like that probably has something to tie into it as well. But unfortunately, I know I kind of just went on a bit of a rant, but I feel like we won't be seeing many Lego Star Wars sets that are based on video games. Don't get me wrong, I do think that it is still a possibility. We've definitely seen a couple in the past, which leads me to believe that we'll probably get a one-off here or there in the future, especially as we get more Star Wars games. I just think that it is pretty unlikely, and I really don't think that we would see any for the anniversary of The Force Unleashed. As cool as maybe getting some sort of design, upgrade of the OG Rogue Shadow would be, I think that would be so sick. But even thinking about that, I feel like that's a set that definitely wouldn't sell too great. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a set I would buy day one. I'd probably get multiple copies of it, but I don't think that there are many other people out there that would be such a big fan of The Force Unleashed to go out and buy a Lego set. Cool Edit says, do I think that they will make a new Commander Gree? And I agree with you. I do love his Phase 2 armor. And also, a pretty good point you bring up is that he also has the Phase 2 armor that isn't the camo from Kashyyyk. So I feel like they could also kind of do something like that as well. I doubt that we would see that because we never actually saw it in any sort of canon media. But I do think that would also be something really cool to see. Maybe that is some sort of book minifigure. But realistically, I have no doubt that we'll see a new version of the Kashyyyk Commander Gree. I really think that Lego will be doing another Kashyyyk wave. It's inevitable. Lego loves Kashyyyk. We've gotten so many different Kashyyyk waves in the past, and when we get a new Kashyyyk wave, we'll definitely be getting our Phase 2 Commander Gree with that wave. Now, I don't know when that would be. I don't think it would be in 2026 or 2027, so I'd say at the earliest 2028, but I think we'll just have to wait and see. But I do have no doubt that we will see a new Commander Gree, and I feel like it's only a matter of time. Spell Reaver asks if I think that we'll ever see a UCS Jedi Starfighter collection like Anakin or Obi-Wan, and I agree. I think that this would definitely make a very good combo pack, and I too was hoping to see this as a Revenge of the Sith anniversary set as a UCS kind of combo pack. I feel like $300 for 2 interceptors would be fair. I don't think Lego could get away with charging $200 for 1 interceptor, depending on the size, but I think a combo pack, Obi-Wan, Anakin, $300, I think that would be a pretty fair price to pay. Now, I don't think that we've ever seen any sort of UCS combo pack where you get 2 sets. Correct me if I'm wrong, just none are coming to my mind if so, but I feel like Obi-Wan Starfighter, Anakin Starfighter would be perfect. It would have been perfect for Revenge of the Sith. However, unfortunately, that ship has sailed, but I do still think that they would make great UCS models for sets, and we've never actually seen an interceptor for a UCS set. We saw a Obi-Wan Starfighter way back when, but I feel like getting interceptors would be very cool to see, or honestly, we just need the playsets at least. It's been so long since we've seen both of their interceptors, so we definitely are due for a remake of them, and I do think, well, a playset is definitely more likely than a UCS set. I think it's a great idea and something that Lego should definitely look into. Maybe a little bit pricey at that $300 mark, but I do still think that it would be a set that would be able to work at that price point, and I also think if we did get that, it would open up so many more doors and opportunities to get kind of 2-in-1 UCS style sets. Jack says, do I think that we'll get any new Separatist sets in the meantime? And, well, I do think that some of the ideas that you listed are definitely ones that are well overdue for a remake. I really need a new Snail Tank. I think a new Hellfire Droid. All of these are just perfect opportunities for sets for Lego to make, especially a Droid Gunship. I saw a really cool mock-up of that, where it's the Droid Gunship, Commander Thorn, and his last stands. I feel like something like that would be a great set, and it would sell so well. But unfortunately, looking toward, as of right now, 2025, locked in. 2026 is already kind of shaping up in the rumor as well as the leak wheel, and it doesn't look like there's going to be much room for any Separatist sets. Now, as disappointing as that is, I do think we'll definitely be seeing more in the future, maybe looking toward 2027 with the anniversary of Attack the Clones. We could get that new Hailfire droid, some of those other sets as well, and I do think that we are well overdue for a new Snail Tank. I think that is such an underrated set, and I believe the last one was, I have no clue, I think it was 2015 if I had to guess. No, it might have been a little bit, it might have been 26, I got no clue, I'll put it up on the screen. But I do think that is also one that is well overdue for a remake, and overall, just with Separatist sets being in such a drought for them right now, but unfortunately that does seem like it is kind of on purpose from Lego. I feel like realistically, I doubt that the Separatists sell anywhere close to what the clone sets sell for, so that's probably why. And while I do think that we definitely need a lot more Separatist sets, I don't think that it is very likely to see many in the coming years, but I do think if the MTT does very well, we'll definitely be seeing more in the future from Lego. I feel like this might be a little bit bit of a trial run. It's the first big Separatist set in quite some time, so I feel like depending on how it does will definitely impact how we see them and how frequently we see them in the future. Judgment asks, since the V19 torrent seems to be based off of the Clone Wars movie, plus we've already gotten the new version of Obi-Wan, do I think that it is possible to see a new Twilight? And well, I really don't know if this is something that LEGO would ever remake, because the Twilight was a very controversial set when it came out. Not a lot of people liked it, and it's also a set that was very expensive for when it came out, and it kind of is a pretty forgotten set. I feel like it's one of the most forgotten sets from that era, and I just don't think that LEGO would remake it. Overall, the Twilight doesn't have the best design to make into a LEGO set. I think it's a cool ship, and I think that the actual set that we got has some really fun play features, but I just don't think it really correlates into a LEGO set too well. And I also just think with how niche the Clone Wars movie is, and how like the actual Twilight isn't necessarily the most loved ship, I feel like more people dislike the ship than people that actually like the ship, which is kind of unfortunate. I think it's a fun ship, but I really highly doubt that we would ever see that set remade, especially because of how the old one was perceived. Sleepy asks, do I think that we will get a new Palpatine's Arrest, or should you buy the old one? And well, realistically, there's kind of two ways to look at this. The first of is if we're going to actually get one or not, and I do think that it is a set that is very likely. Now, yes, 2025 would have been the golden opportunity to get a remake for the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. Unfortunately, we didn't get one, but I do still think that we could get one in the coming years. However, I don't think we'll see one for a minimum of 2 years. I don't think we'll see one in 2026 or 2027, so do with that information what you will. If you want to buy one now and then wait for it to come out, but it also brings up the idea of what it would come out as: a playset, a diorama, a UCS set. Now, realistically, I think a playset is the most likely, with a UCS set just being way too big and for this set. And then the second, dioramas are pretty much just gone for LEGO Star Wars, unfortunately. Maybe they'll come back, but we have no clue. I do think it would make a perfect diorama, and that's why I'm so upset that they left for 2025, because I feel like it would have been the perfect opportunity. Palpatine's Arrest diorama would have been so sick. Getting it in a playset, though, is probably the most realistic way to see it once again, and that would be so cool to get a remake, because to be honest, the old version doesn't hold up super great in the builds today. The build is quite obviously outdated. Don't get me wrong, I love the set. It's one of my favorite sets, but definitely could use a couple of tweaks. But I do think that it is a set that we need to see in the future, because looking toward the minifigure lineup, Mace Windu and Anakin, as well as the Chancellor Palpatine, are pretty accessible minifigures, but Kit Fisto, Sassy Tin, and Agent Kohler, when's the last time that we saw them in a set? It's been so long. We need updated versions of them. I think Kit Fisto, we could get like a new head mold, would be really cool. Agent Kohler exclusive, only ever saw him in a Palpatine's Arrest, as well as this version, the realistic version of Sassy Tin, exclusive to that set. We did get the kind of Clone Wars Eve version in that Starfighter, but I do think that it is a set that is desperately in need of a remake. Maybe I'm blinded as it's one of my favorite sets. I've got it on display right back there, and I also have a used copy that I have sitting in a box because I need to go get the pieces to complete it. But I think it's a great set, and I do think whether we get a new one in the next couple of years or not, I don't necessarily think that you can go wrong with buying one. Now, I understand it's an insanely expensive set, and I do think if it's a set that you want, don't buy it sealed. I only really buy sealed sets because I don't know, something about me, I like them, but I feel like there's not really a point in buying it sealed if you're going to open it up and build it. Just buy it used. You'll get everything in there. Just find one in good condition. You can get one for a pretty good deal if you're like vigilant and you're looking at all of them going on sale. I feel like even if a new one comes out in the coming years, the old one's not going to drop in price. It probably will go down like 10% if I had to guess. But the minifigures are going to all get updated, so it's going to be pretty much all exclusive to that set still. And the build just being so nostalgic to people, I think part of the reason that the set is so hyped up now is because of its nostalgia, not necessarily because it's a great set. I do think the build is a little bit outdated, like I was saying earlier. Minifigures are goated, but I do think, I know I just went on a crazy rant, but it really just comes down to where you're at right now, what your like collecting style is, as well as your financial situation. I think if you're like tight on money, you don't want to spend too much on one set, like if you want to buy other sets as well, I would say hold off for now, look for a nice copy. But if you got the money, you want to ball out, I don't think there's a reason not to. It's one of my favorite sets in my collection. I bought it. I haven't regretted it once at all since I bought it, and I feel like even if a new one comes out, the value's not going to plummet too bad. So if a new one does come out, you can always sell this one and get your money back. Sean asked, are there any recommendations for storing your LEGO minifigures? Because at the rate you're going, you're going to need a better storage system, and I am right there with you. Now, I have two primary ways that I just store my stuff. The first is I store them on some sort of display like this. I know that's not for everyone. Personally, I just like to display my minifigures, like play with them, use them for what I want them for. I know some people like to have them in other ways. That's kind of just what works for me. But as for bulk minifigures, like you were talking about, I have a pretty not good system. I just have them in a box, in bags, and it's kind of annoying. This definitely isn't the best way to store them, but when it comes to like clones, like this bag just full of partial of my clone army, it's just doesn't, I can't have them set up all the time. I can't have them, you know, on display. I can't really do much with them because there's so many of them. They just have to, you know, be in a bag, in a box. And personally what I do, I have them, you know, separated by Legion. You've got the OG 2/12ths, you've got like these are the animated style clone troopers, you've got the realistic style Phase 1 clone troopers, and then you've got all of your other legions in here. You got like OG clone troopers, 332nd clone troopers, you know, just like the whole ordeal, some Kashyyyk troopers, but all in this bag. You know, it's not the best way. Ideally, I'd like to find a way to display them. I just don't really think that it is something that is very likely with my current setup and the amount of room that I have. So if anyone has any options for me or Sean, you know, to get our minifigures properly stored, let me know. This works fine for me, but I feel like there definitely is a better way to go about it. The TTTE fan asks, how long do I think it will be before we finally see a new Count Dooku? Because it's been 12 years, and that feels unreal. 12 years ago since the last Count Dooku is crazy. And Count Dooku being one of my favorite characters, such a sad sight to not see him for so long. But I do think there is hope. I feel like when it comes to 2027, if we get anniversary sets for Attack of the Clones, no doubt one of the sets that they should make should include Count Dooku, whether they do a Geonosis Arena, maybe the Count Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan, Count Dooku versus Yoda. So many opportunities to get them. Maybe if we just get a remake of that OG set where we did see him with Poggle the Lesser as well as Yoda, I feel like that would be perfect. A Geonosis Arena would be ideal, though. We did just get that new version of Jango. Oh, a Master Builder series Geonosis Arena with the UCS version of Jango, as well as your Count Dooku, all of like your Geonosis people that were in there. Sorry, I don't even know what I'm doing. This has nothing to do with the question. I just think that would be a great idea. But as for when we could see him, I feel like 2027 is the golden opportunity. Now, a lot of people were saying that about 2025 and a lot of cool things for Revenge of the Sith, and then none of it actually happened. So I don't think that I would necessarily bank on it happening in 2027, but I think realistically, if we got sets for the anniversary of Attack of the Clones, we'd probably end up seeing a Count Dooku. And if we don't, I feel like it's a minifigure that LEGO will definitely revisit at some point in the future. Now, a big thing, will he have a chrome hilt? I feel like it's one of the big identifying features of his minifigure, and I think it would just be kind of sad to see that hilt not be chrome. Now, ideally, it would be, but I mean, realistically, when's the last time we saw chrome? I'm pretty sure it was with that OG Count Dooku minifigure 12 years ago, so I don't know when we would actually see chrome, if it would ever make a reappearance, and I don't think that this piece would be chrome, and I feel like it would be pretty disappointing. But as for getting our next Count Dooku, I think 2027 would be the best opportunity. However, I could definitely see LEGO overlooking the anniversary of Attack of the Clones, as I believe it's the 50th anniversary of one of the other LEGO Star Wars movies, so they'd probably focus more on that, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, kind of piggybacking after what we were just talking about, Peter asked, do I have any thoughts about a 2027 Episode 2 wave? And I think that there are definitely a bunch of amazing opportunities. This is something that I almost want to make my own video about later on. But I think, you know, what we were talking about just a second ago, the Master Builder series Geonosis Arena would be an amazing set. I have no doubt something like that would sell. It's something that people have been asking for a long, long time. You'd get like your three pillars, your little cutaway of the arena. You'd get your Padme, your Anakin, your Obi-Wan, your Count Dooku, your Jango Fett, maybe a couple of droids, a couple of clones, some Geonosians. I think you'd have an amazing set right there. Maybe you'd get your Poggle the Lesser as well. But as for actual like play sets, I think the big one, a Republic Gunship, the last one we saw was in 2013, and the Coruscant Guard Gunship is retiring at the end of this year as well. So I think that opens up a pretty nice opportunity to get a Republic Gunship. I don't necessarily think a remake of the ATTE is needed. We just got the previous one, and I think that the build, I think that was a great set. So I don't think it is necessary to see a new one of those. We'd probably get, what, like clone command station for 30 bucks. Get some cool episode 2 style clones in there as well. Like we were saying earlier, the Obi-Wan and Anakin versus the Dooku fight would also be so sick. I think that there's just so many different options to get for sets for episode 2 that I really do want to make my own video about it. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably come out, probably won't be for a while actually, 2027, quite some time away, but I'll definitely start looking into that and making some custom sets for that. I think that would be really cool. But 2027 has so many cool opportunities to get sets for episode 2, but unfortunately it might get overshadowed by some of the other anniversaries that are happening that year. I hope that that's not the case, but I feel like the 50th anniversary kind of overtakes the 25th anniversary. We'll just have to wait and see though. Shadow Plaz asks, do I think that we'll get more Order 66 sets? And this kind of got me thinking, we've actually gotten like quite a lot of Order 66 sets. Now, technically, I know that the Turbo Tank isn't super accurate to Order 66 because it's not a UTAT. However, you know, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Galactic Marines, Commander Bakara, I think I would argue that that is Order 66 based. Then moving on with the MTT, you have Commander Bly, you have Avis Akira, and then that's kind of also, once again, it takes place on Felucia, so I would argue that that is also a Order 66 set. And then Plo Koon's Microfighter, as well as the Arc 170, once again, another Order 66 set. So I feel like we've definitely been getting quite a few this year, and it's definitely a good thing. I think some of those sets look to be some amazing ones, and well, I do think there are like possibilities to get a couple in the future. I feel like we're definitely eating good this year when it comes to Order 66 sets, and I definitely have no doubt that we'll see more in the future. I don't think it will be next year though. I feel like maybe not even in 2027, but definitely in the future we'll see more. I don't think we'll be seeing any more anytime soon though, because we've just gotten so many. We've gotten what, 3 in 2025, which is amazing. So I'm very happy about that, and I really don't think that there is much more that they could make for Order 66 sets unless they go toward the Clone Wars. I think could be really cool, or if they go with some of the other ones, like when Stas Ellie, was it Stas Ellie? I don't know. The one that gets shot by the recon troopers on the speeder, forget who that is. That could make a pretty cool set though. But I think there are a lot of cool opportunities, and some that we'll just have to wait and see if LEGO does in the coming years. Gatsu asks, do I think that LEGO might ever make a UCS AAT, HMP, or an MTT? And I agree with you. I think all of these would make pretty good candidates, but realistically, the one that stands a cut above the rest is the MTT. Now, I feel like a UCS MTT is the most likely and the best candidate out of all 3 of these for a couple of reasons, but I think it would be very cool to see. Now, as for the price point, I could see it. Realistically, it's probably going to be around like that $500 price point, similar in size to like the Sail Barge or something like that. I doubt they would go like $800 to like the super sized ones like the AT-AT, but I feel like $500 is a pretty good benchmark to get a UCS MTT. Now, realistically, it would have to have a ton of droids in it. I don't think LEGO could get away with not including the droids. Like, I understand with like the AT-AT is one that they would never have included all of the different snowtroopers in, but when it comes to an MTT, they would probably have to throw in all those droids, or a lot of people would be very upset. And now there's a bug flying around in front of my camera. But I do think that the MTT is the most likely one to see. Unfortunately, I don't think that it is one that's very likely to see. I feel like the day that we see a Separatist UCS themed set would be a day that marks, I don't know, something for LEGO. We rarely see Separatist sets in general, and getting one in UCS form would be sick, don't get me wrong. I just don't think it is something that's very likely, but I think out of your 3 options, the MTT is definitely the best. Cruz asks, if Commander Wolffe's design from LEGO Star Wars Castaway gets used for a new set, do I think that we could also see Commander Gree's new design as well as an update design for the 41st Scout Troopers? And I honestly think that if we did get our new clone troopers in this current era, they would be very similar, or if not identical, to what we saw in the Castaway game. Looking toward the previous minifigures that we got, looking toward Captain Rex as well as the Commander Fox, and I believe I think Commander Cody came out before the game, I'm not sure. But looking toward all 3 of those minifigures, pretty much spot on to what we saw in the Castaway game. So I feel like Commander Wolffe would be no different, and I feel like Commander Gree would also be no different, except I think I didn't really see helmet holes on his design, but he would definitely have helmet holes. But I do think that it would be something that would be very interesting to see. As for a new mold for the Scout Troopers, would also be pretty sick. It's been a while since we saw the Kashyyyk Scout Troopers, and I really want to see Commander Gree as well as the Kashyyyk Troopers, like we were talking about a little bit earlier on in this video, and I do think that they'd definitely be based off of their design for Castaway. The same goes for Commander Wolffe. I feel like it would be pretty spot on. Now, this all goes if we get them in the current style of Clone Trooper. We don't know if LEGO's going to do some crazy change up for the Clone Trooper styles. I doubt that it'll happen anytime soon though, but I do think when we do see both of those Clone Troopers, Commander Gree as well as Commander Wolffe, they definitely will pretty much resemble. I don't think they'll be identical, but I think they'll be very, very close to what we saw in the Castaway game. Lord asks, do I think that with the introduction of new plastic pauldrons that for the clone troopers that we could see new plastic waist capes? And I have seen those for the superhero sets, and I do think that it is a possibility. I feel like when it comes to the plastic pauldrons, it's definitely a step in the right direction for LEGO Star Wars. And well, I feel like when it comes to the plastic waist capes, I feel like a lot of people would be very split on that, but I'd rather have a waist cape than not have a waist cape. I think the printed waist capes look really bad, and I mean, ideally cloth should come back, but I don't know if that's something that we would see for LEGO Star Wars, unfortunately. But I feel like if they go to plastic, it might be a nice in-between. Now, the problem with the previous waist capes that were plastic was that they restrict the movement so much of the arms, so I think that's something that they solved with the pauldron, but I think it would be harder to solve with the comma. And I do think that it is something that LEGO is probably might look to do in the future. I don't know how likely it is. I feel like LEGO is more than happy to just half-ass print the fronting of the printing and not go all the way around, which really is unfortunate. I think that does not look good, but I feel like it is something that we could see in the future for LEGO Star Wars. I just don't think that it is something that we'll see anytime soon. Historical Bricks asks, when do I think that the Star Destroyer will go on sale? Because, like you, I am waiting to buy it. And I am right there with you, like you said as well. I'm with you there too. I need this set to go on sale so I can buy it for my Imperial Army video, as well as I just want a copy for myself. I want that Cal Kestis minifigure. And I'm really hoping Prime Day is what? I don't know the exact dates, but I'm pretty sure it's like a week away from when this video is coming out. I feel like when we get those deals, it has to go on, it doesn't have to go on sale, but I feel like it's one of the big candidates for a set on Amazon to go on sale. And the reason that I say this is because looking toward the 2023 Ghost with Prime Day, that went on a $30 discount, and I feel like those two sets, the Ghost as well as the Star Destroyer, are a pretty good comparison to one another. And I feel like, with fingers crossed, that we'll get at least $30 off the Star Destroyer. I know that's not like crazy deal clearance or anything like that, but I do think that it's the best that we've seen. That's a set that we rarely see go on sale, and I really need to pick up my copy, but I'm not buying it for full price. I am resisting. But I do think that Prime Day is the most likely way to see it. Worst case scenario, wait all the way until Black Friday and it'll be on sale, but that would be such a long wait. But I feel like Prime Day, fingers crossed, we'll see it go on sale. And that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you for everyone for asking a question and everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next episode of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video, and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Drew signing out.